Okay, so Eric, we were talking about, our journey so far.
Mm,
Literally, it's just been like few weeks for me and you, I guess, in our
it
fractional
has.
journey.
Yeah.
And we are just catching up on the best practices and things that we took away. So personally for me, I think the biggest aha moment I had this week was when Dexter kind of like looked through my Notion page where I was doing my offerings, and he said, too many things that you're being offered. Focus on that first one or two product that you really want to provide as a service. And it was such a mind-blowing moment for me because I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Like right now my goal is to close at, the first two or three clients. I have one client, but my goal is to close at least like two more by the end of June. So if that is the case, I shouldn't be spreading myself across like so many things, even though we are capable of it. And
Yeah.
then you had a good insight about why we feel like we had to put so many things out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we want to try to do in terms of this fractional is really try to mirror what we've done for our previous startups, and hopefully that we can provide the same exact value to our potential clients, right? So like coming from startup, you've done like 100 things, and then when you want to compartmentalize, I think six is really really not a unreasonable thing to do. But in that, I really understand what Dexter is trying to say, right? Coming from a client startup, you look at six, you get super overwhelmed. Like, where do you actually want to start? So, like, focusing one or two is I think it helps sharpen that focus. The on our side, I what my point is, we get jitters, right? So, like, from that six, you want to narrow down to two. Am I going to lose any opportunity from the other four, right? So knowing that some startups have their problems are a little bit more customized and relevant to themselves, like how do we kind of like defeat that mindset that I'm not going to lose out?
Mm. I think
Yeah,
I have one. As you're saying this, I was thinking, right? Maybe it could be like when we have our landing page,
yeah,
and they have to do that questionnaire before they have the discovery call, so we can kind of like get a bit of understanding of what's your current positioning,
yeah,
why you're interested in having this. Maybe there could be one of the drop downs or like a checkbox, right? Which could be, are you facing any of these other issues?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or
I
is there
think that's
anything
very
else? It
nice.
could be a free text, but
Yeah,
it would probably help you also collect data based on, hey, if out of these five things, what are the, maybe the top one or two more that people are coming to you with? Because then you might consider, do I need to swap out one of my main products to this other thing that people are asking me for? Is that actually where they are? But I guess these kind of things we can only figure out as we start doing it. Um, and I guess the point is start focused,
yeah,
right? Because to your point, the reason we are strong is because we are generalists, but we have a certain specialization.
yes.
But I think that is also where it could kind of become like our Achilles heel
Mm.
because we can do so many things. How do we narrow our focus?
So I think that the hard truth is, as you say, Shilpa, is there are some focus areas that we are stronger in, and there are some focus areas that we get. Like for myself, I obviously shy away from public speaking. I shy away from marketing and whatnot because knowing that's not my strength. So my strength is more really on structuring and trying to manage that chaos a little bit from an operations slash finance perspective. So I completely agree what you say. And coming back to your initial first point about asking questions, I think that is fantastic as well. So in my journey over the past couple of weeks, instead of saying that I can do finance, I can help you fundraising and so on and so forth, I felt that that conversation felt a lot more smooth when people tell me that, hey, I'm actually struggling with kind of like for example fundraising, right? Like managing my information, managing like I'm talking to 50, 60 VCs, like and they have like equally what's this a lot of questions from me about my own data and so on and so forth. So the questions become like, how do I help you manage your data better during a fundraising process? Obviously that could be simplified, hence my weak strength of marketing, but that, to your point, is a fantastic move to do. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now that, we've kind of like updated each other on where we are
Yes.
now journey. I think
Yeah.
one thing I'm very curious about is, in the last week, because I know you've been reading a lot and attending
Mm.
causes, talking to a
Yeah.
lot of people, but was there a particular like aha moment where you're like, oh, this is something new that I learned? Because I told you, for me, was, what Dexter, when he reviewed my Notion page and landing page, and
Yeah.
that was my, oh my god, common sense, but it slipped right through my brains because sometimes you're so invested in what you're doing. What was your moment for you?
Yeah, so not so much of aha, but I think more of a kind of like a double down on it, right? So shout out to Moritz, who has been running a kind of like toolkit for fractional. Really, really great. Highly suggest people to look for it. So I think they invited three speakers who had done fractional for many, many years. And someone from the audience asked this question, like from your division of sources of leads, referrals, cold calls, outbound, inbound, what is the percentage breakdown? So very quantifiable in
Mm,
terms of where the leads are coming from. All of them, all three of them said 90%, 95% till today comes from referrals.
really? Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so
that's what
that
Dexter said too. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So that kind of tells us where we should double down on our efforts, right, in terms of reach out and whatnot. So because we have to be very mindful of this, we are solopreneurs for the time being. Like our time is limited. I think Shilpa, like we've been now like just trying to build out our channels and so on and so forth. Where should we find our leads, right? So really don't be afraid, don't be shy, just reach out to your networks. I think for yourself, you mentioned you're from the NOC community. That's a fantastic source of referrals, knowing that it's a trusted community. And for myself, I've been working with quite a number of partners, even my friends as entrepreneurs. So I do need to pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Would you need any help from there? Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, and I think like it might feel a bit awkward, I think, in the beginning, putting yourself out there,
understand.
you know?
Yeah,
And the other question, and I think maybe some people might ask this, and I think even we had this conversation earlier this morning, which is
yeah.
actually what's the difference between like a fractional, freelancer, consultant, right? And
Mm,
now there's definitely a momentum though with this brand Fractional.
yes.
And more people are considering either as a side hustle or actually as a full-time opportunity for themselves. So, in your mind,
Mm.
how would you define being a fractional?
Yeah.
And like, why
So
should someone require them?
okay, so I'm going to share my thoughts. I would love to hear yours as well because I think, as you rightly put it, I think while there is kind of a convergence in terms of the definition, I would still like to, I still have a couple of hypotheses and some gray areas that I would like to kind of like test myself, right? So coming back first to your question, like what is fractional, how you differentiate yourself to like part-time consultant advisors and so on and so forth. So fractional to me, I think very importantly, obviously still the element of not being full time. I think that's obviously the first element. The second element is being embedded, right? So
Mm,
to me, I think that's super critical. Like for us to build a trust, and I will come to that with the person that hired you, i.e. the founder slash CEO or really high senior management, um, to give you that problem statement, then for you as a fractional to share high level strategies, obviously peeling the onions, doing discovery and whatnot, but then more importantly, how do you as the role that you're holding, i.e. a fractional CEO, fractional community manager, so on and so forth, come down and work with the team that's on the ground that's going to co-execute together with you. I think that to me is the second point that's super important and the differentiating within the rest. The third one, in my all my conversations, I want to speak about how do I make myself redundant, because the concept of fractional is temporary, right?
mm,
So I want to know that, hey, when you engage me, what do you have in mind? Why do you want this as kind of like a quote unquote temporary thing, right? So two things exactly as what we've mentioned in the morning. I think one is I want to hit a couple of KPIs, right? For example, in my case, some of my clients want to reduce down onboarding time to 50%, right? From a month to 2 weeks, for example. Or I want to, very generally, I want to improve communications across so what's this my organization, so that you can be done through OKRs and so on and so forth, so then that can be measurable. The second way would be more of a time bound perspective, right? So on a retainer, I want you to come in X days a week, kind of thing, up until the point that I think that your role is so critical I want to convert it to full time after I've reached some certain sign of milestone, either from a cash flow perspective, a fundraising perspective, and so on and so forth. Then it makes sense for me to bring this, and then the affordability would be a lot better, right? So I think to have that conversation up front is very critical, not just for yourself as a fractional, but also for the company. In
Mm.
that you build trust, and also you put a time in terms of for you as building your fractional business to know and plan how to move on, right? So it's I'm not sure what's the motivation of others, but for me, I think personally, if I want to take a step back from the business, I am very excited in solving new things. so, so, so that
I think
kind of
we alluded to our ADHD the last time we had dinner together. We're like, maybe that's why we always constantly need new shiny problems to solve.
yeah,
I totally agree with that because
yeah,
one of the questions I was thinking about was how to add value, right, to the people that we work with.
yeah,
And I think beyond just the services that we offer, it's really in empowering them to do the same work or even better without us around. And
yes,
that is by helping them to build the foundations and setting that up for them. And to a
yeah.
certain extent also sometimes helping them hire the right
Oh,
people
absolutely,
to take that job.
absolutely,
Because they might
absolutely.
not like they kind of know the culture fit, but maybe not the qualification or the skill set that might be required to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like to your point, like the fractionals do come in a way which is like at a fraction of the time, fraction of the cost,
Yeah.
but delivering like amazing results.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we also spoke a little bit about sometimes when companies are trying to save costs but execute, they usually rely on interns or a bit more junior people to just be
Yeah.
like, we just work on driving the output, right? Which is, I tell you what to do, this is the idea, this is a plan, and they just be the hands and legs on the ground. But the problem with that is that without the experience, when you're just executing, sometimes you're not aware of like the blind spots.
Yeah.
And you don't know, oh, actually, I could have done this and this might have been faster, right? Because these are two people without the experience trying to solve this particular problem. And to
Mm.
me, where I see the fractionals really coming in and really supporting them is you're coming in with your leadership, almost more of a leadership role versus like the junior as being the hands and legs on the ground, because now you can co-create and also help drive the execution together with the leaders of the company. And because of your experience and your insights, right, into what you're bringing to the table, I think that is really what sets apart working with a fractional or a senior freelancer versus working with people who are just simply your hands and legs on the ground. Because I agree, for some problems, maybe just having the hands and legs on the ground to like run operations or something might be the answer to your problem. But for a lot of times, what I find is that actually what you need is more brain power.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the fractionals, when I say like a fraction of the time comes into play, because a lot of times you also don't have a lot of time or energy to like sit and figure out what am I supposed to do here,
Yes.
right? And you just need someone to come in and be like, hey, let me like help you plug that gap
Mm.
between like A to B. This is where you want to go. This is like based on what you have, your resources that you have, your time that you have, this is how we can possibly get there. And
Mm.
then you can have more of that kind of, to me, I feel those kind of conversations are more productive.
Yeah.
And um that is also where I feel like sometimes a freelancer might also be different than a fractional, because the freelancer might not also come in at a leadership position. Sometimes freelancers are also acting in the execution capacity. So to me, this is really where I see a lot more I guess like collaboration
Mm.
coming between people offering these kind of like fractional services and the leadership team hiring for these roles. To me, it's like, how can we solve the problem most efficiently?
Yeah.
And then you're also being more cost conscious, because if you are taking less time to solve the problem, you also have to pay that person less. And then not only that, but they're going to ramp you up for success, because while you're solving the problem, you're also teaching the leadership team, this is how things can be done. These are the kind of things you need to set up in place. Like, what are the SOPs and like guardrails you need to start building right now, so that as you scale, you are not going to like fall off the cliff again.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that sometimes people are not prepared for. It's not just solving for the problem of today, but as you're solving, you're going to be growing.
Yes.
And is this part of your company, whether it is community, whether it's operations, whether it is sales? Are you also ramping up the tech and operations for this function within the organization to keep up with the growth of your company? So a lot of times people who are just freelancers or interns might not have the insights or experience in terms of like also crafting this aspect of your business. So to me, this is really how I see the difference
Mm.
between like the function and benefits of working with a fractional, or at least like, from my conversations with people in the space and reading up in terms of like the services being provided. This is really how I'll probably like differentiate between like intern, freelancer, and fractional.
Yeah, no, I think that that's super gold, right? So I think the problem statements of fractional, or at least in our ideal world, is we are hoping to solve problems that's going to move the needle for the startups, right? So
Mm.
so having someone who has probably done something similar, who has kind of suffered on your behalf previously through our own stumblings and pain. I think that that kind of like could shortcut the learnings for any new startup out there, startup
Mm.
SME, whoever, right? I think that's the next one. And also what you've touched on is goal in terms of change management, right? So it's not going to be a 1 week 1 month kind of effort. It's going to be ongoing, and for that to happen you need buy-in, not just from the top from yourself but from the bottom as well. So this fractional needs to play a role in that. It convinces everyone in the team to kind of like go along, or co-develop a solution and execute it together with you. If you're going to throw temporary monies in terms of a part-time or whatnot, then the effects might not be as lasting. Yeah.
Mm. True,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And then to just wrap up this
Yeah.
impromptu but ongoing series
Yes.
is going to be, so what is your goal for the next, like 1 week, right? What are you
Yeah.
going to be working on, and what can we expect?
Sure. So for myself, I think I just want to finish up the structure of what I can help in terms for my fractional service for startups, and I'm just gonna be done with that for a bit, and then I'm just gonna put myself out there, uncomfortable as it may for myself, to chat with people, to chat with my current networks, my friends, and so on and so forth, to say that this is what I'm gonna be doing, and ramp up that kind of awareness that I'm out there in the market.
Okay. I think for me, there are two things that I really want to work on this week. One is
Awesome.
that I want to update my offering based on the feedbacks that I've received. So I really want to like tailor it to, as hard as it is, just to
Yeah.
two services to start off. The second one is that I really want to focus on building out my content pipeline. So,
Okay.
in terms of like, what is my newsletter strategy? Because as I shared with you before, I was running a few tests on LinkedIn, and I realized that the amount of energy and effort it takes to maintain a certain threshold of impression week on week, it's actually a lot of effort. And to be frank, I really don't want to be using AI to be crafting my content. As much as possible, I only used AI for like editing of either the format or the grammar, but I want it to be in my own voice,
Yeah.
so that takes a lot more time to build.
Mhm.
And um I don't have a lot of time between like client work, building my businesses, and also keeping up a life, like gymming, friends, etc.
Very
So,
important.
one thing that I did take away from our causes is the importance of having a proper, good newsletter. And
Mm.
I think we also shared about how we see the really good newsletters from around the world. The You can tell they took time to
Yes.
research, craft,
Yes.
and share something of value. And if I want to do that, I know that like that is going to take. I have to put aside a certain amount of time in a week, not just for like on a week to week basis, but at least plan 3-4 newsletters ahead, so
Mm.
that you can see how it is going out, and also how it ties into your sales funnel, right? Like you can't just be creating content for content's sake. So it all has to line up together. So for me, this week is really about coming up with that pipeline of content. Most likely, I was also looking at using Beehive to be
Yeah.
my distributor for the newsletter. So I'm also using this time to learn a lot of things. I've been learning how to use Notion. I've been learning how to use Beehive. I've been taking courses on generative AI, just to see, because that's a very important topic that and a lot of companies are interested in this information. So I've also been going for courses on these areas. So yeah, I think for me this would be my like two main things that I want to achieve for this week: really updating my landing page as well as updating my content pipeline.
Love that. I think the structure is great. Like all the best, Siobhan. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So welcome to the Fractionals, everyone. We're doing this backwards.
Yeah. So happy to have chats like this. And I'm sure actually the community is growing. So I'm very bullish on actually getting like for you and hopefully for me also to play a role in getting like more guests, more diverse guests in sharing best tips and tricks of the fractional world.
Yay! Okay, awesome. So this is going to be called the Fractionals because, it's very to the point. And
Absolutely.
my name is Shilpa, and
And my name is Eric.
okay, we're doing this backwards, but see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. See you then. Bye.